Learning this thingy. Okay, go live. Remove. Okay. Okay, I think it's this. Now we'll do it. Okay, so we are live, I think. Hopefully everybody can hear us. Welcome everybody who's tuning in and who's gonna tune in later. I'm here with Tanner Holt. And yeah, today we will be having a little bit of, digging into Tanner's story in marketing and in general freelancing, and also transitioning into actually running a business. And then we will go into discussing some topics like marketing, and maybe we'll dive into some specifics like CRO optimization and other things. And we can also take some questions. So remember, guys, for everybody, just if you have any questions, just shoot them in the chat, and we will select some that are maybe like the most relevant, and we will try to kind of give our thoughts on that. So yeah, welcome, Tanner.
Thanks. Congrats.
So let's maybe start with we were just talking off camera about your kind of story in the online gig economy and like freelancing world, and you were just saying that you've been essentially working in as a freelancer for like 12 years, since you were, I think, 15 years old. So like, could you kind of give us like a brief picture of how did it happen that you started so so long ago? Like, what was the spark, and why have you stuck with it for so long? I mean, maybe, you could have went away from it a long time ago.
Yeah, so it all started when I was in high school. I started getting a job. I had to help kind of pay the bills with my family. My dad was unemployed, so I started working at a call center. Um, and that was a horrible experience. We were doing surveys, and no one wanted to talk to us when we did those surveys. So it was a really rough job. I actually got really lucky. I was promoted. I was 14, and within 3 months, I was promoted to a manager. And no one liked a 14-year-old managing them. I was managing people that
Damn.
were over 20 years old, and it was a really interesting experience. But I was still at high school at the time, and so I was working while all my friends were playing and doing fun things. And I was doing soccer at the time, and I did a lot of acting and that. But what really happened is I tore my ACL, and I had to take a break off work. And to do that, I started getting back on the phones again. I wasn't doing some management stuff, and I realized I'm like, I really don't want to do this. And I had some friends that said they had like this secret job, and it was coming back. It really wasn't that secret. They were doing search engine optimization, but they had a mentor, and at 16 they were doing backlinking. So I went and learned how to do this, and this entrepreneur was writing a book called, it was Rich Christensen. He was writing Bootstrap Business, and his idea was how to take a group, $500 and a group of high school students, and make a multi-million-dollar business. And I was there kind of towards the end. At the time, the team was 15 when I was there, or 15 people, and it started out with 5, and I was only there for maybe 6 months, and he sold us, and we had to go start working at a big corporation, and we didn't like it. 16, we were making a commute and didn't like the big corporation. So we realized that we were getting underpaid the more research we did. And so we decided to start our own thing. And that's how we started Mach 7 Marketing. It was going to be Blitzkrieg was originally what it was going to be called. And from there, we started making our own lead gen website. We did a lot on Squidoo. We didn't actually start working with clients. The goal was just to make lead generation sites. We made our first one and sold it back to the parent company. But as we graduated high school, All my friends had different ambitions, didn't want to stay with the business, so I ended up buying them out. And that's where I started when I went to college. We had sold there. I needed clients, and I ran into a client, and just kind of from networking groups, and said, "Hey, I'd like to help you with your site." And he said, "All right, how much are you going to charge?" And he kind of laughed at me. At that time, I was only going to charge him $500 or $600 a month, and he didn't want to do that. So we set up a commission structure, and he said, "Oh, I'll pay you, 10% of all the sales that you can increase." And I said, "Well, I need to start with $350 at least." Well, luckily, through the results in search engine optimization 10 years ago was a lot easier. Within 1 month, that check turned to be $1,500, and I was only doing 4 hours of work a month. And I realized, wow, this is great. So I just need to get more clients like this. And I started trying to find some clients, and I was still going to school and college at the same time. And that's where it really started taking off. And ever since then, I was just been kind of going through the routine of getting different business partners. I've moved locations, so I had to get another business partner when the other one didn't want to continue that way. And most of the time I've been doing it by myself. So that's kind of the story of how everything started.
Oh, cool. That's pretty impressive. I mean, like when I was that age, I think I was still doing like very like childish things. So it's interesting. So I think the question that kind of arises in my head is like what's always been like the obstacle that would stand in your way, because you've started so long ago, and then you had some initial success, then went back down, and you said you had different business partners stuff. So like what was always like kind of or was it different things like stopping you from like getting to like next level and actually making it like not just some like gigs, so that yeah, hey, I do this one website for this guy, or like a couple websites, but actually making it a business? Was it that it wasn't just like priority for you before, or there was always some kind of like you didn't know how, or like what was in your mind, like what was
Yeah,
the
I think
reason?
some of it was just getting the clients at first and finding a consistent base of clients that I could get. And part of it was just making that jump to where I could support myself. So through most of this, I always, like I said, I was always going to school. And once I graduated college, I got a full-time job. And I was about ready to make the jump of doing everything on my own. And then I got married and had a kid and realized that that wasn't going to make enough money. So that's why, like today, I'm still at a day job, but then it turned into, all right, balancing this side gig with family and then with a day job, um, and just kind of making sure it ends meet, kind of taking that jump. I like taking risks. My wife is very risk adverse, but at the same time, um, I've always kind of to do this and just finding a balance between all that. And I think finding that structure really is when I came to the tribe, that's been what's really been helpful, is having a process to kind of follow and some extra resources. It's been interesting. I've done sales roles in the past and just never really connected the dots between all my different roles, but having kind of some process and a group to get feedback from has really made it so I can grow at a better rate and feel a lot more comfortable, and hopefully in the next 2 months quit the job. I mean, already I think I've only been in the tribe for 2 months, but I've probably doubled my business. Um, and I think I'm getting to a point now. Doubling it isn't as impressive when it's from 1 to 2 clients, but now having about four, and I've gotten a lot more one-time projects, and I'm about to turn some of those into more reoccurring clients. But I think that's a really nice sign. There's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. My wife can see, that it really isn't that risky. Having a day job's risky. All it takes is you're fired and um, you lose 100% of your income. Or if you have multiple clients, you lose one client, you're only losing a little bit, and you can go find another one. So with that new mentality, it's been putting a lot of growth behind everything. But I think definitely a day job was kind of a band-aid and holding us back for a while.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it seems like at some point security was a big thing. I mean, it's like a completely different thing when you like risk things yourself, and completely different when you have a family, right? So I'm curious, like before we get to like the tribe now, like kind of further down that road, like how have you been, you know, when you've been in that space for quite a while in especially like marketing, let's say, the digital marketing and websites. So like how have you been like learning about kind of the business side of things? Was it like books, or was it just mostly just trial and error, or did you have some, watch some channels, read some blogs? So like, what was your kind of source of let's say knowledge, up to before you kind of joined Tribe? Like where were you kind of getting some pointers?
Yeah, luckily that when I was 15 years old, that mentor was really good and I learned a lot of the skills. But as everyone can know, the search engine optimization industry is, changed completely in the last 10 to 15 years. And one of the interesting things is for my church, I did humanitarian for 2 years where I wasn't working and doing this. I had like a 2 year break or a leap year, you could say. And when I came back, the SEO industry was completely different.
Mm.
So luckily before then I had taught someone SEO and now I go to them for all of my SEO questions. But it was nice to have that break and that step back because I learned, Google controls the algorithm. And Google to control the algorithm, kind of the start of my story was, I had to work at a young age to kind of help do the things I want. If I wanted to play soccer and afford all those things, I had to pay for it. My parents couldn't. So kind of just putting all my hands, like putting a business into Google was kind of a scary thing. And that's where I started looking at other things like CRM optimization, email marketing. And I was able to connect with a few other entrepreneurs, but most of it came through blogging and trial and error and knowing that I was able to do it for some sets or some clients. And then going and try and replicating that process for others. So a lot of it was trial and error, getting that client and hoping that, saying that, yeah, I can do it. And then knowing that I'm going to have to figure it out regardless one way or another. But I do think I did try and get jobs that related to those skills as well, even though they weren't directly related. But trying to find internships, I found an internship where I worked at a neuromarketing lab. So even though it wasn't site testing with how we would do it in the business world, I was using eye tracking software and EEGs and running focus groups, and that was able to provide insight. So I think getting a lot of different experiences with a lot of different jobs really helped, so I could connect those dots as I was going. But I connect all of them like I should have. I should have taken a lot more from my sales jobs and put that in. If I would have done that, there's a big difference between selling for someone else and starting to sell your own business and getting the processes running.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of. That's when I had to dig into it. That's probably the big one, is that you have, I think, a lot of hands-on experience in different in different skills and experience with doing different things, but you never probably, I think, learned like how to put it in like a business terms, like how to kind of structure it in a way and how to put those dots together. So then I'm curious, like what was like the when the moments, like the leading up to joining the tribe, like why have you suddenly, maybe not suddenly, but decided that okay, it's time to try some kind of different approach rather than kind of doing it myself and going that route that I was going before, that I will like join this kind of group of people who are already doing some similar things to me, and just kind of learn from each other and learn from Matt and from other people, like
yeah. So
what
I
was
think
the path there.
Yeah, the big thing was probably, so how I actually was introduced to the tribe was through Cadence. It was actually, I started using Fiverr a year ago, and I was doing a Fiverr gig, and she really liked the work I was doing and wanted me to help with the client that she was trying to get on board. And we set up a time, and she introduced me and said, you'd be a really good fit to talk to my mentor. And I thought, okay, that's really interesting. So I'll go and talk to Matt. And on that call with Matt, I realized, first of all, I needed someone that was accountability. My wife, her background is in music. She knows nothing about technology. If I tell her anything I do, it goes over her head. So she can't hold me accountable. So one of the biggest things was, I need someone that can hold me accountable. I need someone that knows and can keep up with me, or who has experience helping other people. So that was really the big group, because as we were talking, with Matt, I realized I'm like, man, I know a lot of these things and I implement them for my clients, but I haven't implemented myself. Like, why? I just felt like an idiot. Like, I'm like, I know a lot of these things. Why haven't I just done it?
Mm.
And so that was kind of the motivation. I had a business partner, and I realized just because he's my business partner doesn't always mean that I get the same amount of feedback. So I needed that other source, and I needed some kind of a community to help grow and keep learning as well, and to help me make those dots, because there's just so many, as a as an entrepreneur, there's so many different hats to wear. Like right now, you're doing your sales, your project management, you're doing customer success, and you can't balance all those on your own and do a good job. So once I talked about, I've been looking at trying to figure out how to automate things. And part of the course is, once we get the lead flow, and he talked about the 4 pillars, it just kind of all made sense. And I knew, hey, even if it didn't work completely, at least maybe the accountability would help me get and apply what I do know. But in the end, everything just helped. It was a lot smoother of a transition. And like I said, even in these first 2 months, we've basically doubled my business. And I just feel like, as long as I'm following what's going on, what's being told, my processes are just getting a lot more streamlined. Even with the clients that I've doubled, I've been able to charge more than I probably would have,
Mm.
because of some of the things from like Florian's call, or getting feedback on some of the sales processes, or just realizing like, hey, I don't have to charge a little bit. Usually I charge a little and then hope that they buy, and then I can raise the price long term. But starting with kind of a bigger fit. And then I used to take on every single client. Now I only take on conversion rate optimization clients.
Mm.
So having that
Okay.
focus has also really helped. So that's kind of how it all started. And then luckily the results speak for themselves.
Mm. So it seems like the biggest one, like, no, I mean there are a couple, but one of the biggest one is accountability. That's for sure. That's helping like the most. I mean, at first that got you interested, and still is, I think, as you are saying, like a big difference, because you have someone who can kind of keep you, to your word. Okay, you say, okay, I'm gonna do this next week, or this, next couple of weeks, and then you kind of have someone to answer to. And then the next one seems like it's just kind of having an outside perspective, to kind of look at what you're doing and give you like feedback, or give you some pointers, give you some, not necessarily as much. That's what I'm hearing. At least not necessarily as much like teach you specifically how to do things, but like kind of give you a perspective of how to look at things maybe differently, make a tweak here, make a tweak there. Maybe stop doing that thing because it's not bringing you results. And oftentimes we kind of, when we are by ourselves, it's difficult to get that perspective. Am I getting that right, roughly?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I mean, even now, I would say that's probably how it started, but there's even new things. Like, for example, I am starting the Upwork process now. I'm really excited to kind of do that a little bit, as well as Matt and I have developed kind of a new strategy that we're going to, a cold email strategy that I probably never would have come up with. So there are new things that I'm learning, but I think that's kind of what I saw the value in at first. So now that I've been able to tweak some of the things I already knew and kind of start refining those, it is starting to add those things that I never did think about, like, Upwork and having multiple funnels. And I think one of
Mm.
my favorite things is, I used to think it's either organic traffic, where I'm getting traffic from Google, or ads, but there's other ways to get leads. I didn't think I could get as many leads from Fiverr. Looking at Fiverr as a lead gen source is not just an extra, here's a few extra bucks this month, was a big perspective change. And then just how to do that and how to tweak it was really good. Because I was already doing Fiverr beforehand. Like I said, that's how I met Cadence and was introduced to the tribe. But even just in there, I've gotten a lot more reviews, and I started, maybe getting, 1 or 2 messages a week, to now I'm getting 2 or 3 orders a week. And then hopefully one of them generally is turning into a good conversation where I can close them in either to a retainer or a one-time project.
Hmm. Okay.
And that's just
Okay.
happened the last 2 or 3 weeks. So
Okay. Okay. So now also like the kind of chance to look at some different funnels, some different options, and probably also soon, maybe now you've been also quite you're quite also new, but I think a big one also moving forward is probably also gonna be like just networking and having also kind of like-minded people to talk to once in a while. I think, I don't know in your case, but I think it gets a bit like, from my perspective, it's not so often that in your like immediate circle of friends and people you surround yourself with, you have many of those who do similar things to us. So I think that's been definitely helpful for me. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, no, it has been. And like I said, even though like the other hard part too is like I've had the people that are doing the same thing with me as me, they generally don't have a lot of time. They run into the same problems. So when I talked to my friend Braden, and he'll probably be joining the tribe in a month, you know.
Mm.
Um, but it's kind of the same thing. Like me and him could use to. He's the person that I taught SEO beforehand, and now I ask him all my SEO questions if I have them. But you just don't have that network when you're doing everything on your own. So that's something that accountability and that network is something that we really found was something that even he says he needs right now. Because we would still, we'd regularly talk on a monthly basis, but we're talking for an hour, and there's some feedback here and there, but it's nothing consistent. Or you can go in and it's not, you have just two people, you don't have a lot of more perspective. So having a group where you can get a lot of different, and especially where there's a lot of different industries, that's one of the things I like about marketing. It's not just one industry. There's people in the tribe that are doing several different things, and they might have different ideas or questions. I remember doing a call with Florian, and we were doing we're looking over my call recordings, yet Bob's asking questions that I'm like, oh, I never thought of that question, but it's probably the most relevant question.
Mm.
So I think there's sometimes we just don't have that right question. And even though it was my call and Bob was asking probably for himself or an issue he had, him asking that question was able to really help fine tune my sales process.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Um, okay. So yeah, so let's dive into maybe now like a bit of because we are like 20 minutes in. So let's dive into maybe a little bit about like some like topic of your expertise, so we can maybe tease out some interesting ideas. Given that you have so much experience with marketing, I think we can maybe chats about some kind of maybe more controversial topics. I don't know. Maybe you have some. Maybe let's start there. Maybe is there something you think based on like kind of working in that space? Let's say the CRO, but also like SEO and marketing space. That is there like some kind of opinion you have or idea that you would say like most people like disagree with? Like something.
Um, I think a lot of people just are so focused on what's worked in the past, and everyone I talk to, especially I get a lot of people that work on Shopify, it's just enough to have a website. And now it's not enough to have a website. And I think most people know that because of COVID, there's been a big push to have everything online, and to stand out. But I think a lot of people see SEO and CRO as complete opposites when really they go hand in hand. Um, and I think the biggest thing too is when I talk to people is everyone, when they think of conversion rate optimization, they just think, oh, you're going to, change something on my website and I'm going to get more sales. When in reality, that's just a part of it. There's so many different. Conversion rate optimization is optimizing your whole, not just your marketing funnel, but your whole business, and trying to increase those conversion rates. And then part of that includes getting qualified people to your site. It's good to have 1,000 visitors, but if those 1,000 visitors aren't people that are actually interested in your product, you can have, you can follow all of the best practices and be running tests, but you're not going to make any sales because the people aren't interested. So I think when people think of conversion optimization, they think, oh, it's just websites. When no, there's a lot more to it. You're going all the way back to your customer journey. I think that's where I talk to a lot of people, is really identifying, what that customer is and what they do and how they get there and how they use the product and solving that. So I think it encompasses more than everyone thinks.
And so, because yeah, I think you mentioned something at the beginning when you were talking that at the start when you were trying to sell websites and maybe I think CRO would fall into that category, that people would want they'd say like, hey, I'll give you commission for for the changes that you make. If they are good and people come and there are more conversions, you will earn money. So do you still encounter that problem? And if not, then how did you kind of deal with selling something like CRO, which basically is very much focused on, like, there's not much like soft value, so like non-tangible value. I think CRO is like very much like, okay, the conversion is this now, we want it to be this, right? Like, it's, you take somebody from this percent to this percent. So like, how are you still like kind of working on a performance basis? If not, then how were you able to like kind of stop selling that way?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the reason I sold that way before is because they didn't look that I had a lot of experience. So luckily now, I've had 12 years, even though, they've been in different projects, that doesn't come up as much. A lot of people want guaranteed results, and that was actually, I got a lot of those answered from calls with like Florian or Matt or John. So a lot of the questions you had, I had those struggles until I came to the tribe. I was able to kind of be able to answer it a little bit, but it wasn't as clear. So really focusing on the messaging and what they're going to get. That's something I think, before I wasn't reviewing my sales calls or recording them and going back and recording and seeing, okay, what's the questions? And because of that, I've been able to make, a little spreadsheet to show people, okay, hey, here's actually what the results. And because of, Florian's call, it's not that, hey, here, I can make you $6,000. It's, hey, because you're not doing this, you're losing $6,000. And it really helps build that urgency. I still get a lot of people that are think, well, so you're going to test. I think one of the challenges I still have, and I'm working as I fine tune the process, is when I talk to people that think, oh, you're just going to do testing. Well, that's easy. I can do it on my own. Or, they don't understand exactly what they're getting or what goes into a test. So that's what I'm currently working on, is how to explain it in a way that's simple, that someone can understand, that they still need it, but also make sure they really understand what they're getting. So generally a lot on calls, I have to go through and say, hey, you're getting more than just a simple A/B test. We're doing all the customer research for you. We're coding out, we're building it. There's web development. So there's the marketing strategy, then there's the web development. Then we have to let the test run, and then there's the statistical analysis. And then after that statistical analysis, there's actually implementing it into your website. And explaining that to people. And I've kind of, after going back, that's a big thing, but I've learned really visualizing them and taking them through that journey itself is really important to get them to the price. So they also want to pay as much it is, because CRO is very expensive. And I'm still kind of working my way up there, but most people are charging, $3,000 a month. And at least some of the clients that I want, when they see that, I had a lady, I think it was with, on the call recording with Florian, where she's like, $750, that's a lot of money for me. So even, trying to take changing the perspective of people that, you need to pay to get what you want to have good results if you really want it. But so they know exactly what they're paying for as well, and not this risk, like, hey, I just want to do it for a month and see how it goes, because testing really depends on how much traffic they have.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of qualification that I have to do that I wasn't really doing before as I've started this focus. So that's kind of helped a lot.
And why do you say that CRO is expensive? Do you think that to do CRO, you have to have a lot of like knowledge on like from different areas to really fix something for somebody? Or is it just the cost of like different testing softwares, or?
It's just kind of the industry price. Everyone knows that it can be really expensive. If you go to an average agency for, CRO, you're looking at the low end for $3,000 a month. So it's been expensive kind of maybe by what industry and what people are charging. But the people who are looking for it, they don't know what industry charges, because they really don't know what conversion rate optimization is. They're still kind of learning what it is. So when you say, hey, yeah, I'm going to do this, and if you can't put the value behind it, it sounds like really expensive and a lot of guesswork. So going through and clarifying. So I use a little calculator to show them, like I said, how much they're actually losing by not doing conversion rate optimization. The funny part is you say, hey, yeah, I'm going to make you, $5,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 more a month. They pay $700 for it, right? They're not willing to look at it as an investment. So really having to come over that so they can see the value is a big thing. So working on that sales process as we've narrowed this focus has been really important. But the other hard part is, like I said, qualifying them. I get a lot of people from, Fiverr who they have a store and they really need some conversion rate optimization. However, they're only getting 100 visits a month. That's not enough to run an A/B test. You know,
Yeah,
um,
that's what I was thinking, right? That the conversion rates only work if you. That's why e-commerce is probably like one of the main ones, is because you have to have enough like traffic, right? Like for most of, let's say, agency website B2B, like there's just, if there is maybe, a couple dozen people a month visiting the site, it's not enough, right, to make a difference probably for the investment.
Yeah. And with them, we've kind of changed to pitching it more as like growth driven design and telling them the traditional web design process is broken. Like we're HubSpot partners, so we follow a lot like their flywheel methodology. So having some of that as guidance, and that's probably where I was before the tribe, was just learning on my own from HubSpot, actually, now that I think about it. And I think it got me far enough that I was at least open to the tribe when the opportunity came around. But yeah, I run into that problem all the time. And that's where I say, it's a two-part thing. Is it's not just the conversion on the website, it's getting traffic there. And luckily I have that SEO background. And if it's a good client and I feel like it's a good fit, I can work with them. But before, like I said, before the tribe, I was taking everyone. Even I would say, hey, let's, start doing some tests down the road, but let's get you the traffic first, or let's, here's some things we can do to get an idea, but let's really focus on getting your traffic. And it was more local marketing. And that's just a very competitive field. So as I've kind of scoped this out, it's been really nice to have a better target. But I do realize that, hey, there are some clients that I have to help with the traffic. And as I've improved more and more with my messaging, I'm taking on less and less of those clients, because now I know what I really want to do and what I'm good at. I still have a few of those clients that I help get traffic just because that's how it started out. But now I see, those, the Pareto rule, those clients, even though they're doing one or two, those are where it takes a lot more work than the conversion rate optimization. And they also are the clients that complain the most. So really having that vision and goal, like one of the things, like I used to take every job, but I think I've turned down two offers because it wasn't the right fit. Even though they were willing to pay a decent amount, I realized the long-term goal wasn't worth it and was taking away from my goal of having my own agency.
Yeah, the focus and also the time, right? The most valuable resource is time. So, So yeah, one thing I want to pull up, because it's a good question, so maybe we can kind of dive into this one, was like Farouk. He was saying like that you are serving a lot of services from your website. So what's strategy behind it? So I guess he's asking like, how are you able to offer so many services? Like, are you doing all of them yourself, or do you have like, some hires already, or do you have maybe just some contractors or like white label?
Yeah, so I have a contractor, a developer that I work with. I'll usually refer to him as my business partner. I've given him a domain name, email, even though he has his own business. He hops in on calls because I really basically give him all the leads for his business. So he does a lot of that web development, and I do a lot of the marketing strategy, and that's how we split it. And that helps a lot. Now on our website, I need to do a redesign of everything and really just focus it down to CRO. It's only been in this last month that we've really had that CRO focus, maybe 2 months that we've really focused on CRO, but one where it's like, okay, we don't want to offer the other things. Cause at first, yeah, we did offer all that. And if there's a client that comes up, maybe we will. But the interesting thing is I don't think I send half the people to my website, even though I specialize in website optimization and getting people to my website. Most of my leads are coming through Fiverr right now, or my network. So probably in the next 2 or 3 months, there'll be a redesign, and I'll put more ads behind it now that I feel more comfortable about that we are narrow on our focus and we can get the results, and it's going to be worth the time. But right now, these other funnels just generate so much more. If anything, I probably need to change my website so it's just a simple one pager until I get it up to where I want to. I don't want to take all the time to do a full redesign, because that's more time that I'm, it's not a money-making activity at that point. I can do more by getting sales and building out some of the funnels that we have. But right now, none of that traffic's going through my website.
Okay. Oh, you were talking about something about funnels, so maybe that's like one last bigger topic we can explore. As last one, I saw that I know you are using Fiverr,
Mhm.
which I think has very like mixed both reputation, but I think also like mixed opinions. You know, some people say, hey, you cannot really make big money there. Some people say, you know, maybe you can, but depends. So I'm curious how, like, what's your kind of story with Fiverr? Has it changed since joining Tribe? Like, and in general, like, how are you able to make it work? And if you are actually making it work, because I don't know how well is it working for you, you know, given that you are doing CRO, and how you are connecting this like offering, you know, like something small on Fiverr, and then like selling something like bigger, like the whole, you know, spectrum CRO. So if you could kind of give your take on that.
Yeah, I used to look at it as just, hopefully I get a client and I'm doing extra money. But since I've joined the tribe, I look at it as more of lead generation. They're essentially paying me. I'm doing website audits. I try and find gigs that are lower in the funnel, that are people that I know are going to need or have a need related to conversion rate optimization. And it's great. I mean, last month I was able, through, small projects, I maybe made $800. Maybe, four of that was actually doing projects and small one-off for things, but 400 of that, people were paying me to pitch them my services. And then we turned two of those into paying clients outside of Fiverr.
Interesting.
So I
Okay.
think that's the biggest thing, is not looking at as, hey, I'm going to make my living off Fiverr. It's, Fiverr's just giving me the leads, so I can sell them bigger things, and it's just really targeting that. So it's actually really nice. I mean, I'm not having to put any ad budget. Yeah, Fiverr takes 20%, but in theory, they're paying to get, for me to give them a sales video. And then if I want to, and before I didn't meet with everyone, now I'm doing that, and I'm finding I need to find a little bit more of a balance, because I do run into a lot of unqualified people on Fiverr for the bigger packages. However, going through, a lot of the unqualified to find those one or two that really do have the money for bigger projects has been worth it.
Mm. And how long did it like take you to make Fiverr work? Was it like a long process, or did you figure it
I've
out
been
pretty
on
quick?
Fiverr for probably about a year and a half, and it probably didn't start taking off till September. I just kind of got lucky with one of my gigs, and that's kind of where the CRO focus came. It was that CRO audit. I was doing user testing a little bit, and that was kind of failing. So there was a lot of experimentation, but I think finding the right niche, and that's really what took off. I think you have to be very strategic, and for me, luckily, I just got a lucky break. But it was then taking that opportunity, and then with Matt, reframing a lot of the other gigs, building gigs around that as well. Really, probably most of my traffic comes from that one gig today. Still, I probably only get maybe one or two orders from other gigs a month, but it's that one gig. If that one gig were down, that funnel would probably be gone. So that's why it's so important to keep building other funnels around it. And that's also why I'm diversifying a little bit and looking at cold email strategies and Upwork, just in case something were to happen. Because I also do understand with Fiverr that sometimes the quality, the people on there are cheap, and I'm hoping to see, get more people. But right now, that's where it started, and it's working. So I'm just going to let it keep running and start growing other opportunities. And eventually, maybe I'll put less time into it. But luckily, once those gigs are up, it's just talking to those people. There's not a lot of work once the gig is actually up there. So I can focus on other opportunities, where, unlike,
Mm.
for Fiverr, or Upwork, it looks like you're constantly having to send out gigs. At least people are coming to me. So I think part of it's just getting that lucky break, getting those 5-star reviews, and just becoming trying to get to that level 1 seller status as soon as you can, so people actually trust you.
Mm. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Hmm. Um, yeah, I don't know. I will see if there's anything else for us to dive into from the questions. Uh, what Tanner thinks about his niche and services saturation. So I mean, guess that's a topic not just about maybe CRO, but it's interesting topic in general that I think you know a lot of people think of it as like, hey, this niche is good, or this niche is bad, or this is saturated, this is not. I think the reality is that, like, you know, usually whatever you are doing, you think this is the most like saturated and the most difficult, but the I think the reality is that, you know, most of the services now, I mean, the internet is not young anymore. Like you were talking about SEO, you know, like 10 years ago, that like most of the things, unless you are really diving into something that's really just like on the verge of just up and coming, but then that there are other difficulties, that most of the things have a lot of competition now, and the competition doesn't really matter, right? Like as long as you can you figure out the business like kind of model, and you know where to get clients, how to market to them, how to sell to them, and just how to be just slightly better than everyone else, or like how to, you know, have it more efficient. I think the saturation or whatever doesn't really matter. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, you know, SEO, for example, is a really competitive field. Now, could I go out there and probably do it still if I wanted to? I mean, I'd have to touch up some skills a little bit to be competitive. But yeah, I mean, it's a really competitive market from that standpoint. And that's probably why I probably choose to play in the conversion rate optimization. That and just Google, you know, Google controls the algorithm, where with conversion rate optimization, I can, you know, can give a deliverable, and it's not tied to Google change. That my deliverables aren't tied to Google changing their algorithm. But when it comes to that market, I think you're right. I've learned, you know, there's enough people out there. As long as you know how to get to people, then it doesn't matter. As long as you're doing a good service, they're going to start referring you. And you don't need a huge, you know, you don't need every single person to buy your product to make a lot of money. You just need to get the right people and then have them see value so you can sell them more. I think that's the biggest thing. Like even when I was doing the freelancing on my own, I've always only had 1 or 2 clients because of time restrictions, but I was always able to upsell them or have them see the value. And now as I start shifting and I have, you know, like this contractor that I'm working with, and I'm looking at scaling in other ways, I can take on more clients, but I don't see myself needing 100 clients to be successful. Now that's still a great goal. And if I can get all the resources to manage that, that's great. But when it comes to saturation, I think it's always going to be there. Even since I thought I was on the edge of something kind of on the newer end with conversion rate optimization. And I think I still am I like to call it a wave. That's what that mentor I talked to you about, he always talked about like riding a wave. You know, you want to get on at the beginning because everything has a cycle, and I'm probably still in the middle of the wave. You know, SEO, you know, you can still make it, but that ideal time to jump in the wave is probably over. I would say in some areas. I think you could still find opportunity, but it's just a lot harder than it was, you know, 10 years ago. But I think even since I've done the CRO stuff, I get so many people on LinkedIn that are reaching out saying they do the same thing now. And I think it is going to start getting saturated, but luckily I've made my mark there. But I'm not too worried about, even if it does get oversaturated, there's always different ways to target and niche down and be really specific.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, ideally you want to get on the wave, so like when the trend is kind of coming up, but you gotta understand that trends come and go, right? So like, you know, what is kind of up, going up now, it's gonna come down at some point, you know, maybe in a year, maybe in 3 years, and then you're gonna have a similar problem. So still it's gonna come down to like the fundamentals of like, you know, are you able to do what we said, like have the right sales process, find the customers that want to buy it from you, present the value, and then also usually once you know that, then, you know, if it really is bad, I think you can pivot, you know, slightly. So maybe it's not gonna be CRO, but it's gonna be like something similar, but just packaged differently with a different name to a different target customer.
And that's kind of how I started out with. It was web design and SEO, and then it turned into HubSpot had their growth-driven web design. So we were all about being a growth-driven web design agency, and then people didn't resonate with that completely, and it was just different to sell, and that's how we found, hey, just CRO, you know, and we still might do a little bit of growth-driven design here and there, and package that way. I think there's still opportunity there because it's still different than traditional web design. But I think the other thing too is I could always go in and I could niche down and say, hey, I only do it for lawyers, or I only do it for jewelry stores or clothing stores. There's always ways to um, just focus on one thing, and then you can say, hey, I only help jewelry stores. I've helped 100. That's why you should work with me instead of someone who's being generic. But the other thing too is like for pay-per-click, right? Everyone does paid advertising. It used to be a day where I'd talk to clients and I could sell them paid advertising and do their PPC because they didn't start. But nowadays, most people have that. They're just unhappy with the results they're getting. Where that's still going to be a high demand because Google keeps changing things and it keeps getting more complicated. So it used to be that a business owner could start and run their own ads, and maybe not with the best success, but they could at least do it. But nowadays, it's a lot harder for them. So even with the technology, I think even SEO, it's gotten harder and harder. So even though there's more and more competition, there's less and less people entering as it could be because it's gotten so hard. So as long as you are in that expert level, you're still going to have a lot more business, I think. So there is something to be said about staying with something as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think it's like 3 p.m. my time. Yours, I don't know. I think it's 7 a.m. your time, right?
Yep.
So I think it's time to wrap this up. I don't know, any closing thoughts, Tanner? Nothing comes to my mind. So if you have some, then
no, I think we covered really a lot of different topics, and yeah, I think it's just been interesting to see. And hopefully, I think one of the big thing is all this stuff was good, but there's so much more opportunity. I think one can't stop learning. One has to keep continually going and improving. I think that's the biggest thing. I look in the 2 months I've been on the tribe that, I was able to grow the business, but hopefully I can do more than that. Hopefully I can quadruple it this month or something. Like if I could double it again after already doubling it the month before and then learning new skills, like I think that's realistic and it's possible because of the group and the learning and that. So.
Yeah, great. Let's keep our fingers crossed that's gonna happen. I mean, it's mostly in your hands. Sometimes it's also a bit of luck. So, we sometimes we need a break. So yeah. So thanks a lot for joining me today, Tanner. It was pleasure talking, and I learned myself quite a few things. So you got me thinking and yeah, hopefully people that tuned in or will watch this later, because it's gonna be available for anyone watching now. It's gonna be also available in the group and converting freelancers to entrepreneurs on Facebook. So search that if anyone hasn't joined yet, and also on our YouTube channels for both Matt's and mine. And yeah, tune in next week, because I'll be doing this every week. Sometimes it's gonna be kind of more interview style like this week. Sometimes it's gonna be more of chat with Matt about some topics. Sometimes it's gonna be a solo episode where I just dive into some concepts, ideas, and strategies. So yeah, again, thanks everyone for watching. Tanner, your last goodbye.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Cheerios. Let's say.